Today we're going to talk with some experts about mobile technology and supply chains. My name is David Carell. I'm your course lead for SC4X Technology and Systems, and I have with me my colleague Angie Acacella, a PhD student here.
Yep, so I'm here researching the relationships between different parties in the supply chain.
Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah. Very happy to have you.
Thanks.
So in lecture, we said that mobile computing is this technology that allows transmission of data, voice, and video via computer or any other wireless-enabled device without having to be connected to a fixed physical link. I wanted to talk with the experts today to look even deeper about how mobile technology can change things inside the supply chain, particularly inside the transportation and warehousing functions. So we have some great experts with us here today. We have Steve from Newcastle Systems and Dan and Eric from a new app called Dock411. Gentlemen, we really appreciate you making the time for us today.
You're more than welcome.
Welcome. Yep. Happy to be here. Yep. Excited about the opportunity.
Thank you. God, Steve, maybe we could start with you. Could you start by introducing yourself to our learners and briefly to start, tell us what you do at Newcastle Systems and what Newcastle does?
My name's Steve Stark. I manage the international sales in New England for Newcastle Systems. Newcastle Systems allows you to move mobilely with printing, large screen access throughout the warehouse and supply chain. We work within the warehouse, within the four walls. So basically what we look at is value stream mapping from your receiving, your put away, and your picking processes. Basically having a mobile workstation, a desk with your computer, access to your WMS or your ERP, minimizing movement, minimizing touches, and maximizing the velocities which you move the material.
Dan and Eric, would you please introduce yourselves and tell us briefly to start what Dock411 does?
My name is Eric. This is my business partner, co-founder at Dock411, Dan Sarowitz. Dock411 is a shipper facility database. We are collecting information about shipper facilities, by which we generally mean warehouses, distribution centers, but really ultimately anywhere a truck makes a delivery or makes a pickup. And there's important information about those facilities that aren't really captured anywhere in any kind of systematic or cross-industry system. So we've built that system, and that information shares and benefits virtually every party in different ways in the whole supply chain.
Excellent, thank you. Maybe I'll follow up with you, Steve. What kind of cost and time savings do mobile technology solutions bring to the warehouses where your systems are implemented?
I think typically we increase probably from 25 to 35% the productivity of a worker. It's our ROI works out, usually it's a 3 or 4 month ROI. We look at some key metrics there. We look, what are your dock to stock times? What are you able to same day ship? What's your cutoff point to make that same day ship? And how can we help you improve those? A great metric is just to look at is unloading trucks. You back up. How long do you keep that truck at your dock? You unload, stage, then receive the product. Can you do it in one step? Unload, receive it. With our mobile technology, you're able to do that. You're relabeling and get it immediately in the stock.
Could you tell us a little more about what tools do the workers have with them at the mobile stations? What sort of data or what kind of resources are they able to take with them on the floor?
Sure. We enable you to take large screen access. So whether it be thin client, laptop, or full-size PC, we let you move mobily with that. With large volume printing, so your Zebras, your Intermex, Yasato printers, put that all on a mobile workstation. Allows you to navigate and work up and down your pallets, and receive, relabel, count, cycle count, QA, all in one step. So once that material is offloaded, it's staged, it can be made ready for put away almost immediately. So your work is, what we eliminate is really that walking back and forth. If inside warehouse functions, it's a constant walk back and forth. It's batch printing of labels. It's really identifying where do your labels go, which product, if you're receiving mixed pallets, how do you eliminate that cross-labeling, and how do you get that ready for put away immediately? The consumer's really expecting next day shipping, 2-day shipping. How do you set your DC? How do you get on the receiving side of that so it's immediately in put away? And how on the ship side, if you're multi-zone picking, how do you consolidate that and get that out to the door and made ready immediately?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think all of us who think about supply chains feel that pressure that you're talking about, with consumer expectations ratcheting up for how quickly things can get to us and at what price. Dan and Eric, what kind of problems do you see that drivers experience, and how does the Dock411 app help solve them?
So I actually get to see this in the field. When I was a warehouse manager, I noticed drivers pulling up to my facility and stopping where the GPS said, okay, you're here. They would get out of the cab and say, what do I do now? Where do I go? How am I going to get unloaded? How long am I going to wait? Even things down to, can I use the bathroom here or not? We're trying to solve those problems and give that driver a view of what they're getting into before they get there, so then they can make the best decisions possible.
I can imagine it's very useful for the drivers to have that information ahead of time.
Yes, yep, exactly.
What kind of data, could you tell us a little more about, if I'm a user of the app, what kind of information can I call up on my screen before I get there?
So we collect like over 70 different attributes, what we call attributes, about every shipper facility. Things like wait times, pictures of the facility, even things down to if the driver can bring their pet or not.
No, we started with version 1 of the app with about 14 different attributes, and we're at, as Dan said, over 70 now. And I think one of the things that's important is that those other attributes are all things that individual or groups of drivers or carriers have told us have cost them time or money. For example, whether pets are allowed in the facility. Well, a driver gets to a facility, has a pet in his cab. That driver's told they're not allowed to have that pet. Well, that takes time to figure out what to do with it. And you multiply that times 3 million drivers, 3.5 million drivers in the industry. Those things add up. We found that 71% of drivers in our research said that they lose time or money on a regular basis because of simple things they don't know about the facilities that they're going to. The facility can show the driver the right way off of the interstate to their facility, avoiding one-way roads or non-truck routes or low bridges, that kind of thing. Giving them the best information so that they can get there and get unloaded or loaded and out back on the road as quickly as possible.
How do you collect the information about these attributes?
So one way is we get information from the drivers that are on the app. They're at those facilities, and they can give us a rating and some things about that facility to help warn other drivers that are going there. We also are working with the shippers, so the people who are actually shipping the goods who have the facilities. They're the ones making the rules about the drop-offs and pickups. So we work with them to get that published, so then they can the people coming to them can make the best decisions possible.
It's neat to see that you've codified that into an app that drivers can use mobilely.
Yeah. And what's interesting also is that not only is it information, but it's also maybe incentives to make some changes in policies or strategies to help the efficiency. This is great.
Yeah, we hear frequently from different players that they don't communicate. The shippers don't talk to the drivers, so they don't know what they want. A little bit of just looking at it differently. I think one of Dan's advantages in coming up with the idea was that he was new to the industry and didn't have that momentum and inertia, and that's why a lot of fresh ideas always bring value, I think, to this supply chain. So, but you're right, Edgy. It's this fresh thinking. It's communication. It's getting the players to talk to one another.
I kind of want to follow up on that. And one of the reasons I was excited to get you all together, this whole group, is that the way I see it, you really kind of hand off one to the other in the supply chain. Dock411 drivers might be bringing material to or picking things up from the warehouse. And inside the warehouse, people operating Newcastle systems could be picking it up or staging it for the driver. So I wonder, from each of your clientele's perspective, how important is your partner to your efficiency?
I think that's a great point there. I think a lot of we hear on the industry side is a shortage of trucks, and how we can impact that is, I think a lot of truckers lost. He spends time at that loading dock, whether it be 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, waiting to get paperwork or get his inventory's delivery verified and signed off on. That's time and cost to him. So what we help is on the receiving side. Your receiver has the ability to work directly with the driver. There's no front end office. There's no bottleneck created. So with our workstations, it allows for that cross training. So at that station, you can actually receive, you can scan in the bill of ladings, the packing slips, everything, put that all right in. You can offload and have that driver gone and down the road right away, and you can process all right in. So, great impact on that. On the ship side, we can help with ship it without that wait. In other words, as you pull your picks and you make them ready for ship, we enable you to work almost up in real time to stage product, to label it and get it ready.
Yeah. Great point, Steve. And you're right. It is all about efficiency. What we like to say here is if the driver gets in and out faster, easier, safer, and less frustrated, everybody wins. The driver wins because they're often rolling. They're making money rolling. They're not making money sitting. The shipper wins because they get their product on time, safely, and not damaged. The carrier is happy because their driver's in and out, not getting hurt, rolling, making the company money. And if there's a broker involved, they know that load got in there safe and quickly. So, and definitely, it's all about efficiency.
I know you do some re-engineering of processes when you bring your technology to a solution to a client. Is that correct?
What Newcastle Systems does is we warehouse audit, or in short, we value stream map. So what we look at is we look at your entire process from your receive, your put away, your pick, your ship, your reverse logistics. How are you handling that inventory? How many touches are you putting on that inventory? Are you able to QA on the loading dock? If you're not, are you moving, restaging for QA? So how can we streamline that entire flow and not work through those fixed stations, but rather than maximize the inventory movement and move the stations to that?
Dock411, could you tell us a little about how you work with shippers to maybe become a better experience for drivers?
What we found as our database grows is we're finding, let's say, shipper facilities that are below average. We can talk with them and see if, point out what we see objectively in the data, point out particular areas, say your lighting is a constant area of complaint. We won't provide the lighting, but maybe you want to go out and find the lighting vendor and talk with somebody and get that fixed. And that really speaks to one of our initial design goals, was to be able to collect data and look back historically over time for change.
Coming from the warehousing side of things, we were so inward focused because we had so much to do and so much to push out the door that we were only kind of looking inward. Now today with this tight capacity, they have to kind of look outside the doors, and it's kind of like, the first time or, in a while that they've really looked outside and really kind of focused on that. So that's where we kind of come in and tell them things through the eyes of a driver, through the eyes of a carrier, those type of things, and let them see not just what's inside, but what's happening outside of their warehouse.
That's fascinating, because you just touched on this very tight capacity market. I mean, everyone's looking, how can they improve? And if you have data over time, that really helps. So that's really cool.
One question I had for both businesses is, who in the sort of organizational chart makes the decision to implement your mobile technology solutions?
We get inquiries from your receiving manager, to your pickers, to your warehouse manager, to your VP of logistics and supply chain. You may have a difficulty as a 3PL. We can't meet our metric for dock to stock times. We need same day put away. We're pushing overtime for that. So we'll come in and we'll look at that. We'll look at your processes. What's it costing you? So you've got your inventory carry costs and your labor costs, which really influence that DC. Those are the variable costs within there, and we can have a major impact on that. So we may start with a large company on one site, and we'll make the improvement. We focus a lot on ROI ROI, writing up case study, and presenting that to move that upstream and showing, hey, we can really help you here and really give you substantial cost savings.
Dock411, who comes to you with inquiries about your mobile solution?
It's usually facility manager, warehouse manager, operations, supply chain, somebody at that level. And then the larger the organization, maybe they'll have to bring it up to upper management.
And we started with talking with drivers first, because we wanted to show the shippers that there was a demand for this information. So we got thousands of drivers on board and giving us the information about those shippers. And then we could go to those shippers and say, hey, these people really do want this information.
Our class is about supply chain technology and systems. So learners get exposed to things like ERP systems and warehouse management systems and transportation systems. So I wonder if both companies could talk a little about how you work alongside, or do you ever integrate data with any other systems at your clients' locations?
We're very focused on this niche part of the industry, and it's a very well-defined niche. You might think that we don't have to talk to anybody else because it's so well circumscribed, but obviously that's not the case. The more other parties we can connect with, the better, the more real time our information, and the better quality, better integrated into the overall system we are. For example, our wait times right now, there are a couple of dock scheduling software packages and warehouse management packages we'll be integrating with that will allow those facilities to actually publish their current time, in real time. And then on the other side of, well, as we see it, the other side of that coin, are technology partners that are integrating our data into their systems. So, for example, if you're a broker and you've got a TMS or a carrier, for example, your dispatch can look up information in Dock411 that is more current, more accurate, more complete than perhaps the notes field that you have in your TMS. And through our APIs, you can easily integrate that into that TMS system and then display it on, say, dispatch or operations, same screen.
Thank you, guys. This has been great. Two more questions, sort of a small one and then a big one. Small one, and this is more for Dock411, but Steve, please jump in if you have anything. Do a lot of truck drivers travel with pets? You mentioned that.
Yes. Actually, I was at a trucking show a couple days ago, and there was a memorial convoy, and one of the drivers actually asked me to be in their cab. And so she has me jump up in the cab, and her pug jumps right up on my lap because that was his spot. But yes, pets is a big thing. As you can imagine, they go thousands and thousands of miles with nobody in the cab. It's nice to have a companion there to hang out with. So,
but even more significant are kids. A lot of drivers are away from home. They get an opportunity over the summer to have their kids with them for a week or so. And we've had drivers tell us about situations where they've gotten to a facility and told, you cannot have kids within the fence. It happens more than you think. All of these things are things, again, that drivers have told us have cost them time or money or frustration. So we're trying to do something about it.
Where do these good ideas come from to solve problems? How did you see that there was an issue that needed addressing and then come up with a way to do it?
I think our company's growth has really been driven by the need for efficiency. I think, I go back to that word, that Amazon effect, omni-channel. I guess maybe say more e-com as a whole has driven that, and that requirement to give better service to the customers and that competitive nature. If you can't same-day ship now, you're really behind and your business is in trouble. So we listen, we understand the problems. A great new product this year called the Motion Meter. And it's just an app that times out processes. We can work through the entire warehouse with you, and we can give you a terrific report on where you went efficient. like here in Massachusetts, they have 4 or 5 distribution centers. And we found that their average receiver was walking about 8 miles a day. We put them on a workstation. It eliminated 3.5 miles of walking a day by a receiver. So, we just think about that has 1 on your productivity, 2 on that worker. And that's a lot of benefit of our systems and where they fit in.
I can appreciate the 8 miles a day in steel-toed boots every day. They're not nice and light tennis shoes. Typically, you got to wear some steel-toed shoes in the warehouse. So I totally appreciate and wish I had Newcastle systems at some of my previous jobs. In my mind, I always think, how can I do this better? When I saw this big problem with drivers just being totally confused and not knowing what they're getting into, that's when I thought, how can I do this better? And started doing a ton of research and realizing, yeah, there was a problem, and yes, there is a market for it, and let's do something about it. Let's ask the people who are having these troubles.
The kernel for Dock411 was Dan's observations about something happening around him, and I know that probably sounds really basic and obvious, but in my experience, it's everybody's so busy doing their jobs that it can be hard to stop and take a step back and say, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way? Is it an opportunity for efficiency, as Steve indicated, that you just don't get by admittedly being heads down, nose to the grindstone, all that needs to be done, but doing something over and over again, maybe it's stop and look. You're answering the same phone call, asking the same information the 3rd or 4th time. Maybe there's a problem that you can work on and solve once and drive efficiency for the organization. So.
That reminds me too. It reminds me of one of my favorite little cartoons that I've seen floating around the internet, and it's two guys pushing a wheelbarrow that has square wheels on it, and then another guy standing to the side holding a round wheel, saying, "Hey guys, I got something for you." And the guys pushing the wheelbarrow saying, "No, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that." And that's exactly it. It's like, how can we make this better?
And I think both of your companies are doing a great job using mobile technology to bring the wheel to the wheelbarrows of the world. Thank you, guys. So our learners are working on a MicroMasters in supply chain management. What kind of recommendations for skills or experiences or anything to make our learners successful in their supply chain management careers?
Don't be afraid to dive into the boots on the ground. That's where I started. That's where I came up through, and the amount of stuff I learned just from taking a warehouse job right out of college, going up the chain and loading the trucks myself, the amount of stuff I've learned just from that, and then applying it to things I've learned later in more of the office or our corporate type role it's unbeatable.
Understand the systems, because that's where I think you'll be able to see where problems are or where there's opportunities for change or efficiency. So stop and don't just consume the information that you're given, but really try to understand how it's built, put together, and create some of that on that create versus consume balance.
Embrace the daily worker. The person who's doing a task daily is an expert at that task, and they can give you the most input on how to help improve. Observe, watch, listen, and bring everyone in and let everyone have a voice within there, and create that culture that's comfortable, that everyone has buy-in, and you'll be successful.
Yeah, actually, just to support what you said, in my work, I look at relationships, and when you're thinking about technology, but how you're going to implement it, the human in the center of it is really something that's so important to remember. So yeah, I see this in my research all the time as well.
Our learners are learning about mobile technology, both in lecture, and now they're seeing how it's solving real problems in practice. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Appreciate the opportunity. This has been great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having us on, guys. Appreciate it.
Good luck to everyone.